Hello and welcome to the Real Estate Experience podcast. Hello and welcome to the Real Estate Experience, where we talk about all things Abu Dhabi property. I'm Ben Crompton and we're joined today by Hugo Leaver. Hugo, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. He's one of our newer estate agents, or real estate consultants, as we say. And today, the topic that we're going to be covering is people moving to Abu Dhabi. We've just had some figures out about the population increase in Abu Dhabi. It's gone, I think, in 2024 from 3.9 to 4.2, and it's obviously affecting real estate. So, where are these people coming from, and what are they buying? So, Hugo, where do you think people are coming from at the moment when they come to Abu Dhabi?
Well, I've not seen the exact figures, but I know that there's a lot of people coming from the UK, where we hail from.
Traditionally, it's been a bit, in terms of buyers, lots of Russians.
Yeah, I've heard about that. You see it a lot in Dubai.
Yeah, it's big.
You see some more people since I've been here 6 years now, but you definitely see more people from Russia now here residing. But a lot of people from the UK and people from Italy, I guess. There's been about a tripling, I think, of people from Italy.
Really?
People from the US. But mainly the UK is what I've noticed, and I guess other GCC or Arab countries.
And why do you think people are coming from the UK to take an example?
I think everyone's probably at this point got a friend over here who's going on about it, and they see the benefits, the lifestyle. And I guess everybody wants to try it now. Tax laws in the UK, things like that.
Yeah, UK, just anecdotally, people back home seem a bit miserable. I mean, British people are generally a bit miserable.
It's the British way, exactly. Yeah. It's, there's, we're all a bit gloom in the UK, but we do have a little bit of hope in there somewhere.
Yeah. So obviously, maybe we can talk about it in terms of pulls and pushes. So the pulls to the UAE, the weather, it's not particularly nice now, but what else is drawing people in? Tax-free things.
Yeah. I mean, if I look at my own experiences, I came over here for took a risk, but definitely the tax-free lifestyle, the salaries. And then obviously when you come here, you get to know much more about it. It's obviously very stable, very safe. You get a lot of really good experiences. I mean, I never went to an F1 event until I came over here. There's things like that going on all the time over in this country. So there's a lot to enjoy.
A lot of people talk about safety.
Yes.
That I don't know if it's true that the UK is getting less safe. But certainly, anecdotally, you hear about a lot of people having their hands cut off with Rolexes on and things like that. And I see a lot of social media about, particularly in Dubai, about you should move out of France and Italy and the UK because of the deteriorating crime situation. Obviously, we're extremely lucky. I think Abu Dhabi has been voted safest city in the world 6 years running or something like that. Do you think that's a big push?
Absolutely. I think
robberies.
There's definitely a narrative there, and where I'm from in Manchester, there was
up north.
That's right, up north. Always
there's trouble up north.
A lot of good people up north, but yeah, there was obviously there were quite regular break-ins in the area where we were in South Manchester, and I remember one Christmas, all the Christmas presents got taken the night before, and
the Grinch.
It was it's definitely a Brit, but yeah, no, there was definitely some crime issues, and even if it is minor and people aren't really exposed to it, the safety out here is a huge positive, and you can walk out. I mean, I just left my bag in the middle of nowhere just here now and went out to get a coffee and some lunch, but in the UK you probably wouldn't take that risk as easily. It's just the way that this country is. It's very, very safe and secure.
Yeah, and I think for families in particular, and again, I think it's anecdotal. I don't think there's that much more crime going on in the UK, but obviously people are very particularly protective of their children. They don't want their children growing up, around crime and drugs, and those kind of things. So, it's definitely, and Abu Dhabi, I think more than Dubai, is more of a kind of a family oriented, sort of place. Even in some of the attractions that we have here on Yas Island, you talk about Formula One, talk about Yas Waterworld and Warner Brothers and all these kind of, very family friendly, family oriented, places. Abu Dhabi tends to be seen kind of like that. And I think, maybe that bleeds through to the UK, where they're looking at, okay, if they're not happy in the UK, where can they move their family to? And Abu Dhabi's decent option.
Absolutely, yeah.
And now with the schools that we've had announced, but British schools, Harrow, Gordonstoun, and just recently King's College Wimbledon announced on Fahid. So people might worry about education, but I think they're looking to import at least the brands and hopefully the quality of the education that you get back in the UK, for example, trying to import it over here as well.
Yeah, and this country's still quite traditional, quite conservative, I guess, and some people like that. Some people obviously maybe have different views, but for the people who do want those views, it's obviously an attractive place. I'm not entirely sure on the private school fees in the UK, but obviously VAT has just gone onto those school fees as well.
That's
and
true.
I imagine that people could be looking here going, better weather, safe, great education, or schools coming in, maybe cheaper options as well. And I think when you take into account the average salaries, and then you take into account, of course, the tax-free benefits of income and so on. No capital gains tax. Obviously, non-dom residency has been a big thing as well.
Yeah.
But I recently, 2 or 3 months ago, I met a British guy, and he was relocating his family from London here. And the reasons he said were, he lives very close to inner city London, but it takes him an hour to get in. Apparently the average traffic is about 2 to 3 miles an hour in the city at peak times. And they can sell their home, they can come out here. And he just found that all of the things we just discussed were a benefit for him. So his wife's business was moving over here. He had a job coming. So it seems to be resonating with people at the very least. So there's definitely whilst there is rhetoric, there's definitely some people who are definitely coming over for those reasons.
Yeah, and almost you can see it in maybe 2 types of people. Obviously, we're creating jobs here in Abu Dhabi. We're seeing, Abu Dhabi global markets, hedge funds and financial businesses are coming over here. We're also seeing companies like ADQ, basically portfolio managing a lot of the companies here in Abu Dhabi and bringing over skilled people to come and do that. But then there's also these people who, can live anywhere. They've got, let's say you're talking about this guy with his wife's business. She can bring her own business over, or people who can work remotely, which is happening more and more in the world. You just get to choose where you want to live. So, even without a job, you can just go and live wherever you'd like to and earn that tax-free money in what is, for 8 months of the year, pretty comfortable place to live.
Absolutely. And also, someone who obviously play rugby, someone from the rugby team who was living in Shanghai, he actually moved to Big Joe. He actually moved to Abu Dhabi, and part of the reason was because it's only a 7-hour flight to the UK. So it's within a day you're in the UK, you're in Abu Dhabi, Dubai. It's not that far. And with the access we have now, and obviously the regular flights, you can go in between quite easily and not have any problems with the travel. It's fairly accessible.
So then, what do you think is maybe pushing people out of the UK? Obviously, so we've got some pulls here. One thing that notice there's quite a bit of chat about at the moment is like really kind of like low growth across the whole Eurozone. When you look at the US, it's growing at kind of like 3 or 4% a year. And 10, 15 years ago, it was about the same size as the Eurozone. Now it's 50% larger because they're growing, they're creating more business, more wealth. Europe seems to have stagnated in that way. Like there's not, I don't know, many jobs in the UK or people getting paid more. Like what's going on there? Maybe they're looking for that kind of the economy, the GDP in the UAE grew 4% last year. It just seems like more opportunity.
Yeah, and I guess differences in individuals as well. I remember reading something recently that citizens of the UK tend to make businesses at a much lower rate than people in the US, whether or not that's opportunity or just the
less entrepreneurial.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So and with that, obviously, you'll create less jobs, or you rely on maybe government to create more jobs. But I mean, we have quite. I did hear someone from a French guy, and he was talking about after COVID, buying a restaurant because he thought everything's going to come back online at some point. But the taxes, which basically all the costs involved and what he would end up with to take the risk of taking on that business, he opted out of that. So I guess there's more opportunity, but also similar to the US, but also here there's a bit more scope and chance that you can make it without having to be burdened by a number of taxes or financial restraints and regulations and so on. And I guess a lot of people are seeing that here.
Yeah, I think particularly from a British perspective, if you're an intelligent, well-educated British person, the tradition is, you'd be a lawyer, or you'd be an accountant, or you'd be, you work in the city or something like that. Whereas I think in the US, and I think to a certain extent in the UAE, you see how many business degrees they have here, is, to do a business degree is, if you're intelligent, start your own business. If you're well educated, go set something up, be an entrepreneur, as opposed to going into these ways. And so I think Dubai in particular has always been very, very entrepreneurial. I think Abu Dhabi has kind of been a bit more the seat of government, and obviously have all this oil money. And I think that's changing now in Abu Dhabi. I think you're seeing more people start businesses and be entrepreneurial, and the more people that come in, the bigger market that you have more opportunity for that, right? You just need to go down to Mamshur and see all those restaurants there. They're packed all the time. And then for the most part, they're not chains. They're individual, like Antonia's and stuff like that, where people have taken the risk and set something up and it's worked out.
Absolutely, and I think we've all met people here who've maybe had success where there have been opportunities. Maybe it's the infancy of the market. There's a lot of maturity. There's a lot of potential here, and it's definitely picking up at a big pace. But where there wouldn't be as much opportunity back in the UK because it's quite, mature, it's well developed. Services are right; they're everywhere to be seen, and in every sort of sector. So you're picking up a lot of things here, whether it's gyms. I know there's some guys who are on Vogue Fitness, for example. They've got their fingers in all sorts of areas, and Haraka, and obviously all sorts of different stuff. But the opportunities are here, and people are taking advantage of that. But also with that, you have, Abu Dhabi's not been on the map as much as Dubai, I guess.
True.
But it is starting to pick up now, and especially with announcements like Disney bringing it some global attention. But also people getting to know people who are living in the Middle East and realising it is a safer bet than they maybe thought, and people have lived here for an awful long time. And I think that gathers attention, but also secures a little bit of trust.
Yeah, and I think, and if we take it back, because we're supposed to be talking about property, if we take it back to someone like Aldar, it seems like they've got a mandate to try and go out and get more foreign investors into Abu Dhabi. They do road shows in London, they do road shows in Manchester. They also do them in India, in China, I think Hong Kong as well. They're trying to get more people to invest in Abu Dhabi, but also part of that, it's an education process to teach people about Abu Dhabi. It's not a village in the middle of the desert somewhere. It's a bustling city with incredible attractions. And I think them doing that in the UK, just as an example, educates British people more about Abu Dhabi, as opposed to Dubai, and makes them feel more comfortable about purchasing property here, about coming here, about setting up their businesses here. And you also have the Abu Dhabi Investment Office as well. So their job, their mandate is to bring foreign business into Abu Dhabi, and try and create that ecosystem where people do come over. And I think obviously the more you know about somewhere, the more likely you are to invest and to move over. And I think there's a big education going on there now, and property is obviously a big driver there.
Absolutely, and those people who are coming over and maybe bringing business, or maybe they're just looking to reallocate some assets. I mean, they're looking and seeing opportunities in Abu Dhabi, and Dubai has been very very high velocity. There's been all sorts of off-plan units and entries for investment, and Abu Dhabi has recently started adding more off-plan options. So there's more opportunities for investors to come in now, and there's more opportunities to get into the market if you're lucky enough to get anything on launch, that is, but which is very rare. But yeah, it's there's more availability coming on, and there's going to be more options. More developers are coming in, so people aren't just going to have maybe several communities to choose from. There's going to be dozens, and give it another 5 or 10 years, and obviously the landscape will change even more than it has already in the 6 years I've been here, where there wasn't even anything on Yas Island really when I was first here. So it's changing very quickly.
Yeah, and I think if we take it back to British people, Allsop and Allsop in Dubai. So Brits have always been big buyers in Dubai, and they've always been like very, very strong presence there. They brought out a report saying like 44% of all their sales were to British people. Now they're very British focused, and they market themselves in that way. But then when the figures came out for Noya, and I think that sold in maybe like 2021, it was 85% were UAE national buyers. So Abu Dhabi, I think is really trying to make that jump, not to sell 44% owing to British people, but to move away from the domestic market and try and attract those people in the way that Dubai has. And I think there's no reason why Abu Dhabi can't have sell a lot more to British people and have more British people over there, the way Dubai has obviously been very successful doing, and not just rely on UAE national investors. And so I think anecdotally, from our perspective, you see more British people buying, you see more French, as you say, you see more Italian. Early on, it was the Russians, Chinese, they went through a big period, I think maybe 22, 23, being big investors. Now, not so much, but I think we're seeing more diversity. In terms of your clients, like where do you see them being from?
Oh, everywhere. I've sold properties to Brits, Americans, Chinese, South Africans.
Americans is an unusual one. I'm surprised Americans buy here. Just it's a long way from home.
I guess it's
and quite close to Iran.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, there's one of the couples were actually American Iranian, so I mean, it was, which made sense. But obviously, SeaWorld came over, so someone who bought recently with me, they were American but came over from SeaWorld, Florida. So it was. I guess it all depends on what businesses are coming over as well. There are, very diverse, and I think in terms of the off-plan market and who's getting in there, I guess local UAE nationals will probably have an easier access to getting units. But the secondary market on the resale, I would have thought that might be a little bit different. It seems that, in my experience, Brits seem to look for a family home, or they look for maybe future appreciation.
I think they're less comfortable because in the UK off-plan's not really a thing, and so they're probably less comfortable with it. Whereas UAE nationals, off-plan's been massive, since forever, and they're going to be here forever because they're they're citizens. So I think they feel more comfortable with it. Whereas for us it's a bit more strange.
Yeah, I never really saw anything off-plan in the UK. Everyone just buys resale properties, right? It's everything that's already built. Whereas obviously here there wasn't anything, so it had to be built now. But I mean, I guess there is. I mean, Fahid Island. We recently had a presentation from Aldar who told us that overseas investors, international investors, were I think around 40% of the total buyers. So they're definitely getting some interest from overseas now, and I guess the ability to pay an easy payment plan probably helps with that. Obviously, knowing that it's going to be in an area such as Fahid, which is right next to Yas Island as well. These are areas which Disney's are fairly right well, and they're fairly well marketed. Obviously, we've had like Ryan Reynolds, who are all these Yas Island chief executive officers who they keep
Jason
bringing.
Momoa was there.
Kevin Hart, wasn't he?
Yeah, I think so.
Big Shaq. Yeah. But love the Americans, but it's. So it's and Canadian. I think Gosling's Canadian, isn't he? But
Reynolds.
Reynolds, that's the one. Yeah. Same. Scotland and England, they'll be the same for any Americans as well. But so I mean, it's definitely becoming more well known, and definitely a lot of different communities who are living over here. As I say, I've had a few Chinese investors, but they're actually living and working here as well. So it's not just an investment point for them; it's actually a place where they can live.
Chinese is actually, if you ever look at the population breakdown of the UAE, there's 200,000 Chinese in the UAE. So they're one of those where you think, there's loads of British. There's 100,000 British and 200,000 Chinese. So they're actually a much bigger, population than you imagine. And 40,000 French, 40,000 Americans is just like the last numbers. So there are some big populations out there that you probably don't notice as much as you do some others.
Yeah, I've didn't realise there were that many Chinese living in Abu Dhabi, but in the UAE or Abu Dhabi?
UAE. And so when we went to the Aldar Awards a while ago, and they were giving awards out to best foreign brokerages, so the foreign brokerages who sold the most, they were all Chinese.
Okay, right.
The top 10 were, as far as I can remember, maybe 7 of them were Chinese.
Right. So,
massive drive to get, there's 1.4 billion Chinese, and they're big investors outside of China. So there is that. But there's also, a lot of Chinese in the UAE who buy for themselves too. Yeah. So it's another market.
The property prices have gone up quite a lot since the last couple of years, I guess.
True.
I guess it's a point which people have been looking at, and it's definitely on the minds of people who are buying here at the moment. But I still see, it's very different in the UK, for example, where I grew up in the north of England. You could get a 3-bedroom terraced house for 100,000, which is 500,000 dirhams. But you can't find anything like that in Abu Dhabi. Maybe if you go to
even a studio.
Maybe maybe somewhere up in the Northern Emirates you can find something like that. But obviously, if you're in the city, if you're in Manchester, in London, the prices, I don't think they're too dissimilar. If anything, they might not have even caught up to the inner city prices yet, apart from maybe places like Fahid, which are obviously a luxury item. But it seems that as Abu Dhabi's developing, it's still somewhere which isn't unaffordable, especially for people who are living in those areas who maybe looking to relocate.
Yeah, and I think we've got to be a little bit careful about comparing, the new launches on Yas Island and Saadiyat as well with like the existing stock, because when you look at Reem Island, when you look at Raha, when you look at like Al Reef, still very 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 close to
your
where
favorite
people
place,
work.
Is it?
Yeah, it's close to my heart. Very close to where people work, and you can get into the city, even in rush hour in 30 minutes. And those areas are still very affordable. Now, what's happening is a lot of particularly the Aldar launches are luxury, are golf course, are water facing, are on Saadiyat Cultural District. So they're in these premium areas, only a little bit outside the city, but there's still plenty of opportunities if you want to. Buy a 3-bed in Marina Square for around about 2 million. There's still plenty of manageable options as well. So, and that's obviously very close to the city now. So,
yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So we can't really compare everything to Fahid. That's supposed to be next level luxury. It'd be amazing when it finally gets built, and we see if it lives up to it.
Yeah, and then the other thing with the affordable places as well, even. Recently, the 1-bedrooms in Water's Edge, for example, which is the most affordable place on Yas Island, which is where I usually work, it was like 1.3 million dirhams now, which is £250,000. So it's definitely not cheap for a 1-bed there. However, I guess in the long term, you probably have less of the council taxes and things like this. So there's, I guess it's not just a straight comparison either. If you're comparing it to overseas assets with the benefits here, so no sale tax, capital gains tax, and so on. So
yeah, you can almost mark everything up 40%, right, because of tax. Also, interest rates we have here are much lower. You can still get around about 4%, whereas in the UK, it's still higher than that. Yeah, you have service charges, which you would probably have in the UK as well, but yeah, you don't have like other council taxes and property taxes and stuff like that. And obviously, yeah, no capital gains on sales, no tax on income when you're renting it out. So yeah, there's a lot of benefits in that respect as well.
So I was having a look into the service charges recently. Actually, it was, and I didn't know about this, but apparently they allocate a certain amount of the service charges for emergency funds. And
So you have a sinking fund.
a sinking
Yeah.
fund, that's what it was called, yeah.
Yeah.
Which I didn't realise, but I thought maybe after the weather from last year where half of the city got flooded, should I say, or some of the areas, then maybe they've put a bit more emphasis on that now.
Yeah, I mean, a sinking fund is not an insignificant amount, and I think at some point it's supposed to. Well, you don't never need to rebuild anything, but yeah, to make those renovations to make the building last longer. But yeah, obviously, and manage flooding as well. But you know, in the community as a whole, obviously, each person needs to insure their own specific property if the water comes in through the balcony or something like that.
It was a good name, sinking fund, just in case
In case it sinks.
bit of quicksand. Don't see your property again.
Yeah, or sinks like a boat maybe. Yeah, true.
Our reef's staying okay though.
Well, we get some big puddles. We get some big puddles when it rains, but yeah, it hasn't done that in a while. Anyway, I think we've covered most of that. To summarize, yeah, we're seeing more British people come over to Abu Dhabi. It's definitely an option. Getting maybe not as popular as Dubai yet, but still certainly a good choice for people looking to
Better traffic.
Much better traffic.
Much calmer.
Thanks for coming in, Hugo. Really appreciate
Thanks for having
you
me.
giving us your time. And thank you very much for joining us on the Real Estate Experience. We'll see you next time.